I found it. I'd never been to Cambodia before, and I found the people very welcoming, very nice, and I like Siem Reap because it's a smaller town, and you could get out and explore more. And
when you can show a picture to us.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I will. I didn't. They're still on my phone. I haven't downloaded them to my computer yet. Yeah. Teacher Julie and I think we agree that maybe February 15th would be a day when we could do that excursion to Grand Palace.
What day?
I think February 25th, which would be a week from today.
What day?
It would be a week from today, Monday.
Monday?
Yeah, a week from today. If that works for you.
Monday to Friday now, I am free.
This week, Monday through Friday.
Yes.
What about next week?
It's okay.
Next week, okay?
Yeah.
Would we go just in the afternoon, or would we need all day? Pardon me?
Afternoon better. If we go in the morning, we skip the class. We study morning, afternoon we go.
And so we could still have class Monday morning, and then go in the afternoon.
Yeah. Good idea.
Okay. So if we want to do that, let me check with Julie to make sure that's okay with her. But I think the two teachers at the other Wat were interested in going, and then maybe some students would like to go too. But and I haven't been to the.
If you go to Grand Palace, you see some restaurant. The King Lama full copy from small stone castle.
Right.
He copied from Cambodia.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You know what I noticed? I'm very interested in the Greek and Roman civilizations. I've studied the Greek and Roman civilizations a lot. I found the architecture at Angkor Wat similar to the architecture in the Acropolis in Athens, Greece. The symmetry of the Wat and the colonnades and the columns, it was very, very similar. Now, the Greek temples, they were built from about 500 to 300 BC in that era, which would have been about maybe 1,000 years, 800 years before Angkor Wat. And I was wondering if there would have been commerce between the two civilizations, because I could see similarities in the architecture. Really could.
I went to Cambodia last year. Something I feel sad. You know what? Stone Castle. There's area managed by Vietnamese government. Not managed by Cambodian people.
Really?
Yes. They charge a lot of money. Some money transfer to Vietnam. 99 years. Cambodia lose money every year. They can make more money, but they cannot because government, Vietnam government control.
So the archaeological park is now controlled by Vietnam?
Yes.
Instead of Cambodia?
No, pay a little money to Cambodia.
That's not right.
Not good idea.
No. Not a good idea. Well, let's get started again, because we want to make sure we leave some time to read from Slumdog Millionaire, okay? So, more about which. Sometimes we use which, and sometimes we use that. And I want to explain to you when to use which and when to use that. Well, what's the difference? Let me give you a couple of examples, okay? From here, the easiest way to get to the Grand Palace, which is a popular tourist attraction, is by water taxi. Okay? Now, notice this is what we call a clause. What I've underlined is called a clause. Now, if we wanted to, we could take this entire clause, which is a popular tourist attraction, we could remove that. We could erase that. And the sentence would still make sense, wouldn't it? From here, the easiest way to get to the Grand Palace is by water taxi. The sentence it's still a complete thought. The sentence still makes sense. All we've done with this clause, which is a popular tourist attraction, is just add some additional information. Okay? In that case, we would use which. Now, look at this example. The tourist attraction that is the most popular in Bangkok is the Grand Palace. If we took this clause out, if we remove this clause, the tourist attraction is the Grand Palace, the sentence no longer makes sense. We need to have this clause in the sentence in order for the sentence to make sense. We okay? Is my explanation clear enough so far? Now, the rule for when to use which and when to use that is both which and that is used to introduce a clause. If the clause is just additional information, we would use which. If the clause is necessary to give the sentence full meaning, to give the sentence meaning, we use that. Simple rule. We call this type of a clause, and you don't need to remember this, it's just another grammar term. We call this type of a clause a non-restrictive clause. This is called, right here, it's what we call a non-restrictive clause. And this type of clause is what we call, those are technical terms, and what it means is that by restrictive, it means that this clause restricts the meaning of the sentence. And it's necessary. It's a clause that is necessary to give the sentence meaning. This clause is non-restrictive because it's not necessary. The sentence still makes sense. Now, you don't need to remember the grammar terms. You don't need to know the grammar terminology. You just want to learn how to speak English. So, but you don't want to pass the exam. Well, your exam is not about grammar. Your exam is to be able to converse correctly. So the rule is, if you need the clause to give the sentence meaning, use that. If the clause is just extra information, you use which. Simple rule, right? Okay. So, which is used to introduce a clause that's non-essential. That's called non-restrictive. That is used to introduce a clause that is essential. And so we call that a restrictive clause. Okay? And I'll send, I couldn't send this to you last night because my internet at the Rio Monte wasn't working, but I'll send it to you tonight with the other ones, okay? As I will the notes for Wednesday. Oh, by the way, before I forget. Tomorrow is a worship day, so we will not have class tomorrow, but we will come back and have class on Wednesday. Now, so here's another example. Slumdog Millionaire is the book that we are reading now. See, we need this clause to give the sentence meaning. If we didn't have this clause, the sentence wouldn't make sense. But the place where I'm staying, which is the Rio Monte, is quite comfortable. We can take this clause out and the sentence still makes sense. So if you need the clause, use that. If the clause is just extra information, use which. Okay? Well, we'll see how good we are. Okay? Okay. Who wants to try the first one? When I was in Siem Reap, I saw a circus with acrobatic acts, blank, that were amazing. Pip, which one do we use?
I was in Siem Reap. I saw a cycle,
Circus
a horse,
with acrobatic acts. Acrobatic. That
were amazing.
correct. Now, that's right. Way to go. Why did we use that? Why did we use that? What's the rule?